3 minutes, that is what they gave us. Not 3 days, not 3 hours. 3 minutes, to hand over everything humanity had ever built, or watch it end. I stood alone in a chamber built for giants, my boots pressed against a floor made of some cold silver metal that hummed under my feet like it was alive. Around me, seated on curved platforms that rose higher than my head, sat the Concordat Tribunal, a council of alien species, so ancient that some of them had watched stars die and new ones take their place. My name is Nadia Voss, and 3 hours earlier, I had been drinking coffee in my apartment in Warsaw. Now I was the only human being standing in front of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy, and a glowing red number floating in the air above me had just changed from 3 minutes to 2 minutes and 50 seconds. The being addressing me was called the Speaker, a tall figure wrapped in shifting light, its voice arriving in my mind rather than my ears. It told me that humanity had crossed something called the unspoken boundary. Weeks earlier, our scientists had picked up a signal from deep space, an old broken transmission, drifting through the dark for who knows how long. We had done what humans always do. We answered it. We had no idea that signal was never meant to be found, let alone answered. The Concordat called it a violation. They called it dangerous. And now they wanted a surrender. Fast. Before anyone back on Earth even understood what was happening. I felt my hands shaking, so I pressed them flat against my sides. Every diplomat in human history who had ever walked into a room like this had one job: buy time, find leverage, stay calm. I had none of those things. What I had was 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and a room full of alien eyes waiting for me to break. So I did not argue. I did not beg. Instead, I asked a question. I asked the Speaker how many other species in their long history had ever been given exactly 3 minutes to decide their fate. The chamber went quiet. Not the calm kind of quiet, but the kind that happens when nobody expected the question and nobody has a comfortable answer ready. The Speaker's light flickered, just slightly, like a candle catching an unexpected draft. Around the platforms, smaller voices murmured to each other, in languages I could not understand, but their tone needed no translation. They were surprised. The Speaker finally answered that this situation was unique. I told it I already knew that. I told it that no species before us had ever been rushed like this. Every other first contact in Concordat history, according to the very records my request pulled up on the wall behind them, without them even noticing, had come with negotiation periods lasting days, sometimes years. Some species had been given decades to simply process what was happening to them, and yet here we were, given 180 seconds. I asked why. The clock ticked past 2 minutes. The Speaker's light dimmed for a moment, and something in its posture changed, the way a person shifts when caught in an uncomfortable truth. It admitted that the timeline had been shortened by a special vote among the council. I asked what had triggered that vote. Silence again. So I answered for it. I said that they were not afraid of what humanity had already done. Nobody sends an entire fleet to surround a planet because one signal got answered by accident. What frightened them was not our mistake. It was our pattern. I told them my people had studied their own history too, in the short time we had access to their archive feeds through the shared communication relay set up for this very meeting. I pointed out that humanity had gone from lighting fires in caves to walking on our own moon in less time than most species in this room took to invent writing. We built cities, then burned them down, then rebuilt them stronger. We split the atom within one lifetime of learning to fly. Whatever the Concordat had measured about us was not a violation. It was velocity. They were not punishing an accident. They were trying to stop a trajectory before it went somewhere they could not control. The Speaker did not deny it. Its silence was answer enough. I felt something steady inside my chest for the first time since I had been pulled onto this ship. Fear was still there, but it had company now, something sharper. Clarity. I told the tribunal that fear was a strange reason to skip a conversation nobody else in their long history had been denied. I said that if humanity truly was as dangerous as they believed, then rushing this moment was not caution. It was the biggest mistake they were about to make. A frightened decision made in under 3 minutes is rarely a wise one, and every species in that room, no matter how many stars they had counted, had made decisions in fear before and regretted them. One of the smaller delegates, a being with too many eyes for me to look at directly, spoke up in a voice like static and asked what humanity would even do with more time if given it. I answered honestly. I said we would talk. We would explain the signal, explain the mistake, offer proof that answering it had been curiosity, not conquest. I said humans had spent our whole short history solving problems nobody thought could be solved, and asking for time to solve this one was not weakness. It was exactly the same instinct that got us to their doorstep in the first place. The clock passed 1 minute. The speaker leaned forward, its light steady now, focused entirely on me. It asked why I believed they should trust a species capable of growing so fast, so unpredictably. It said, unpredictability was the very thing they feared most. I told it that unpredictability could also mean something else. It could mean a species too stubborn to be erased quietly. I said that whatever protocol they had prepared for correction, whatever fleet sat outside our atmosphere right now, none of it accounted for a civilization that adapts faster than any of them had ever recorded. I told them if they wanted a clean, controlled outcome, rushing the one species built entirely on refusing to be controlled was not the way to get it. Nobody spoke. The murmurs across the platforms had stopped entirely. I looked directly at the speaker and said one last thing before the timer could finish. I told it that if they truly believed humanity deserved correction, they should at least give us what they had given every other species before making that choice. Time. Real time. Not to plot, not to fight back, but to be understood. I said if their council could not survive one honest conversation with a species that had only existed for the blink of a cosmic eye, then maybe the fear was not about us at all. Maybe it was about what watching us grow reminded them they had lost long ago. The number in the air reached 0. For 1 full second, nothing happened. No alarm, no strike, no verdict. The speaker's light flared brighter, then steadied into something calmer, something almost thoughtful. It turned toward the rest of the tribunal and, in a voice loud enough for the whole chamber, announced a delay of judgment pending further review. A ripple went through the platforms, some delegates clearly unhappy, others visibly relieved, if alien bodies could be read as relief at all. I stood very still, afraid that moving too fast might undo whatever had just shifted in that room. The speaker turned back to me. It said this outcome was unprecedented, that no delegate in Concordat memory had ever turned a correction countdown into a request for reconsideration. I told it that humanity had a long habit of doing things that had never been done before. It was, in some strange way, the whole reason we were standing here at all. It asked me one final question before the chamber began to empty. It asked what humanity would do with the time we were about to be given. I told it the truth. We would learn, we would prepare, and we would prove that fear, even galaxy-sized fear, was never a good enough reason to silence a species still learning how loud its own voice could be. The speaker did not respond right away. It simply studied me, the way someone studies a puzzle that refuses to behave the way it should. Then it dimmed its light in what I chose to believe was something close to respect, and the chamber doors opened behind me, wide enough for a giant, wide enough for me to walk through on my own 2 feet. I walked out of that ship not as a surrendered representative, but as someone who had bought her entire species more than a countdown could measure. Behind me, the fleet that had surrounded our planet remained in place, but the tension in the air had changed. It was no longer counting down to an ending. It was waiting to see what humanity would do next. They had given us 3 minutes to decide our fate. It only took one question to make them start doubting theirs.